Hello, this is my first video since the beginning of December. First I thought I was never gonna make videos again, and I made that decision, I'm never gonna make videos again. It felt like Armageddon. It felt like the end of the world for me. My papa dog Dave died on December 10. Just like 2 or 3 days after I made that video, and I took these photos where I held him, where he was sitting up, doing his Easter bunny, begging Paul for food, and we thought maybe he has another 2 years, that's what we were thinking. So I thought, he's doing so well, and so what happened on December 10 is last 2 nights he slept in my bed, and I already had this sick feeling in my stomach because he had been, the stool wasn't looking good. He had wheezing when he was breathing. So wheezing sound coming out of his lungs. He was severely overweight, like obese, because my husband always felt sorry for him and would feed him more. Basset hounds get overweight very easily because that's genetic, they like to eat. And when the person gives in, all the time, then they will eat until they throw up, or they might eat until they get some kind of stomach bloat or something. So it was good that Papa and I slept. He slept with me also the nights before. I'd sleep on Paul's bed and have the Papa alongside my whole belly. But then I would usually go back to my other bed because you have to have at least a king size bed when you sleep with the dog in bed, because dogs, or also cats, they will move around and they will shift, you have to shift. So you have to give them a lot of space. That's very important. And so last 2 nights he slept in my bed because Paul was airing out his bedroom, and maybe that made the Papa depressed also, I don't know. So I go frantically over every detail, and I feel like, oh my gosh, that's something we should have done better. There's something we didn't pay attention to, or maybe all of these things combined caused the stroke. I don't know, but I think the obesity, and the vet said he had cancer. So he's done X-rays, and he saw growth in his lungs. So it was pretty obvious that he'd already been suffering with cancer. When we adopted him at age 8, he had cancer, and the people, they had removed a main tumor on his back, and that's a terrible mistake to make. I keep emphasizing that when I talk to the Basset Hound group on Facebook, or when I talk to people in general about health, dog health, animal health, human health. It all functions the same way. When you remove a tumor, you cause that tumor, because the tumor is it's like a parasitic individual. Even if it comes from your own cells, even if it's your cell, and it's a mutation of your cell. Okay, so that's what that is. It's also strongly related to moles, which is very interesting. So if you even touch the tumor with a probe, if you take a biopsy from it, a little sample tissue to inspect it, or if you cut the tumor out, the tumor will, is there some kind of inbuilt intelligence in it? The tumor will, in order to proliferate its own existence, its own genes, it will send out a signal that says, hello everyone, every dormant cancer cell, I'm being removed. This is not the time for you all to grow. That's what the cancer tumor, the main tumor, does. It sends out a signal in form of a chemical that causes dormant cancer cells that are just totally, harmless, that are somewhere else in the body. It causes them to initiate a growing process, and what happens is they will start to shed out chemicals, very complex biochemical reactions, like a domino effect. They will shed out some kind of hormone, some kind of chemical that will cause capillary, which are microscopically small blood vessels, to start growing towards the cancer cell. This is very, very, very intense what happens there. Okay, and then they will supply that with sugar and nutrients and oxygen and everything that it needs, and then it starts growing, and not just one, but maybe there could be 50 growing then, okay? And that'll be the end of that living being, okay? So, I was very worried about this, terribly worried. He already started, as soon as they had removed it, when he came to us, he already had a lump in his earlobe. They have very long ears, and there was already a lump building in the skin of this ear flap towards the bottom. And I was very worried about this. I started to put hydrated bentonite clay on it real thick. I did this every day, several times per day. I actually did this for several months, and it went away. It dissolved. The bentonite clay cures cancer. Okay, so but you have to put it on all the time. You can't be just doing it one time and then think it will heal up. You have to put it on all the time, like 3 times per day, every day, and for months or 2. And so that went away. Then the other earlobe developed one. I did the same there, and it went away. Then he started to get lumps on the side of his body, like on each side. So I started to put the clay on that. Some lumps had gotten real hard, which is a very bad sign. When the lump is hard, like a rock, or that's a very, very strong indication that it is a very malevolent form of cancer. So I put the clay on, and what happened? The tumor softened up completely. It became completely soft and squishy, like that putty material. That's how soft it became. And then I was relieved, because once it becomes soft, it's no longer malevolent. So it started to dissolve. Okay, I did this with all of the lumps. But then more lumps would come up, It's all because of the metastases. That's what it's called. You know, when you poke a main tumor, it sends out a signal for the dormant cancer cells to grow. That's called metastases. Okay, this is very well known in science. Okay, often not talked about, usually not talked about to clients. Why? Because they don't want the clients to be alarmed, because they want to use their terrible things, their terrible medical interventions. It makes them money. Okay, that's all they're concerned about. They're not concerned about that the client gets metastases. That will just make them more money if the client gets metastases, right? So no, they will cut it out, they will nip tuck, they will poison it, they will poison your liver. It makes them money, okay? And they get kickbacks from the pharmaceutical industry for using these poisons. This is a really, really bad chain reaction, and people need to become aware about this, okay? If you love your animals and children and your own bodies, then you need to become aware of what's happening there. You need to know that you cannot trust these people, okay? They cannot be trusted. They are in complete error, okay? It's not just that the average person is, vastly not informed. The medical doctors are not informed either, I wouldn't even say that the vast majority of them are just deliberately poisoning you and all of this. I'm not even going to say that. But I think a large percentage of medical doctors are somewhat knowledgeable about this poisoning and what it does, and they may even have heard about the metastases, because one scientist came out with this to the public. He discovered this. I think Epstein is his name. Has nothing to do with that show guy. A very brilliant scientist, Professor Epstein, I think. And he found out about the metastases. He found out, I don't know, it was like 20 years ago or something. Or maybe 30 years ago. I'm not completely sure. But then the medical industry, they kind of brush it under the rug, They were like, ooh, that doesn't really fit in with our profit maximization. What if the clients find out? They're not going to want to have us do all of these interventions. So the natural people, the naturopath people, the natural healer type of people, the herbalist, all of those people read that information and got very alarmed, okay? And they were just searching and searching and searching. What can we do, to prevent the metastases in case someone had something removed, in case someone adopts an animal like we did, who had that already done before we got him, So because they didn't know, the foster mothers didn't know, they just listened to the veterinarian, and the veterinarian was not conscious about it. Okay, and a lot of those people are just not conscious about it. They may know somewhat, but they're not conscious because they don't want to be conscious. There's another thing. There are many different levels of awareness. There are levels of denial. There's all kinds of different denial going on in humans. So don't think just because you go to a healthcare professional that they really know what they're doing. Okay, you have to do the research on this. I did the research, so I'm sharing that with other people. Because so why sit there, lean back and let other people reinvent the wheel and suffer, and the animals suffer? No. So that's why I make videos. That is the whole purpose. for me to make videos, to share my knowledge, my information with other people, so that their animals and their children and their own bodies don't have to go through such agonizing pain, And I have information that reaches all niches and crannies of life, from psychology to physiology. So I am constantly researching, I'm constantly learning. I read books. I recommend the books by Dr. Bruce Lipton, by Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, very important scientists, that are finding out a lot. Paul Stamets is an amazing researcher. He is a biologist, molecular biologist. Rupert Sheldrake is also a molecular biologist, and so is Dr. Bruce Lipton. They're all biologists. They are studying cells. They're studying genes, and Paul Stamets is also a mycologist, which is an expert in any kind of fungi biology. That's very, 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 very interesting, an interesting area to go into, because I think there are probably billions of different fungi out there, from anything from mushrooms to parasitic fungi to even to forms of cancer. So when they said that cancer is a type of fungi, actually, because it does not grow in very aerobic environments, so in very oxygen rich environments. It grows in oxygen depleted environments, and that is what fungi do also, so they grow everywhere where there's carbon and moisture, and where there is not enough oxygen getting to it. So they can live in very anaerobic environments, kind of like on Mars almost, So all of this, it goes into all of these areas, and my brain always fans out very far into all of these other areas. I have to really kind of compose myself and come back to the subject that I want to talk about. And it's not very easy. It does not come very easily to me. I'm not that much of the sharp talk show host type of entertainer. Okay, that's a completely different way of processing things in my brain. So it's Asperger's. It's completely out of socialization norms. So, but people with Asperger's, it's not a disability. It's an ability. Okay. It's part of it's part of intelligence, part of high intelligence, to think out of the box, to stand outside of that thinking in terms of socialization. The people that think in terms of socialization, those are the ones that are affected by these various levels of denial. And I'm going to get into this maybe tomorrow or another day in another video, because that's a whole study field for itself. So, but I have to mention the denial in this, because we have to become aware that this denial is happening. It's happening also in science, even particularly in religion. That's all denial. That's all it is. It is denial. So, but the medical industry is full of denial, and some of that denial is partly deliberate, and some of that is completely unconscious, okay, and completely unknowledgeable, and some of it in I probably think somewhat in the 20% maybe 15%. I want to be nice, 50%, 15% of medical doctors are doing it deliberately. They know about metastases, they know about all the negative side effects, they know what it does, they know that their intervention is more likely to kill the client than if the client went home and did nothing. So, and they do it anyway because they want the money and they're fully aware about it. So it's probably 15% of them that are like intentionally doing this just because they want the money. And not because they want to necessarily hurt that person, but the money is better than the person's wellness for those people. Okay. But then there's all these other groups of people that are partly in denial, and I see all of this, I see that when I talk to people. So, and when you point these things out, the ones that are deliberately doing this, they all start to insult me. They all come after me. They all, what do you think you can make us change our lifestyle? Your lifestyle of deliberately poisoning people. Yeah, you bet I'm gonna say something because I have a heart. I care. So I'm gonna say something, okay? If you hold pigs in gestation crates in factory farms, I'm gonna say something. You bet, So, and it's not about your lifestyle, A Muslim might say, I rape little girls. That's my religion. It's my lifestyle. You bet I'm gonna say something. You bet I'm gonna really sound the bell on this publicly and take my loudspeaker and proclaim this to the whole world, to stand up against such horrible things like, child marriage, raping of women, halal, oppression of women, kosher. All of these are incredibly horrible religion-based things. Okay, so, and even the Western slaughter methods that are quicker, but the animals live in absolute horror and agony in confinement. They trample on each other, and so that needs to be outlawed. And because I care, I'm gonna say something. It's not about taking your lifestyle away from you. It's not about, I'm just gonna be trying to be some kind of asshole dictator or something. No, I see animals are suffering and something needs to be done about it. Someone needs to speak out against it, okay? Very, very important. So I'm also speaking out against metastases that can be avoided, okay? The liver being poisoned with pharma industry drugs that can be avoided, okay? We can go into holistic medicine, we can go into natural healing, the earth has everything we need. The clays are curing cancer, and Paul Stamets, the mycologist, the fungi expert, he has discovered several, like 6 or 7 different mushrooms that grow in forests, in deep forests where the forests are still healthy. He said they're at the brink of extinction because of deforestation and pollution. So he has harvested some of those and he is cultivating them. He has the largest mushroom cultivation facility, I believe, in Washington State, where he is growing them in the right environment. He has just the right temperature and moisture, and he has trees there with them. Some of them need to be on trees. It's a symbiotic environment. It's a symbiotic relationship. That means the tree benefits from the mushroom, and the mushroom benefits from the tree. It's not a parasitic relationship. It's a relationship where they heal each other, help each other, and this happens a lot in forests. Pollution is damaging all of this, all of these healthy relationships, and these interdependencies. And when, for example, one species dies out, then it will affect another species, or maybe several other species that have dependent on that one other species. The person who doesn't know anything about this will laugh, because they'll go like, these sissies crying over the bees dying. Okay, they don't know anything about biology, but they will be very loudmouthed against any environmentalist. Oh, they're just trying to be grandstanding. Oh, they're just trying to take my lifestyle away from me. No, they care. They see what's happening. They're informed about biology, okay? They know about the interdependencies that are out there in the wild. That's why they do something. That's why they say, stop with the pollution, okay? We're destroying this planet, okay? Stop with all of this. Like, there's so much damage that's being done on all kinds of, in all kinds of fields and levels. So all the time, because of commerce, because of market perpetuation, profit maximization, these denial forms, then the public's being kept uninformed deliberately. So the people that speak out will be slandered, they will be marginalized, some of them are murdered before their books can become known. So this is all happening, you better believe it. The corporate agenda is a form of mafia, okay? So don't think that's just the Italian mafia that is extremely corrupt and that murder people. Oh no. The corporate agenda, they murder politicians, they have murdered the Secretary of the Navy, I assume because the environmentalists have brought active sonar to his attention and what it causes in the whales, and he may have felt really bad about this and wanted to not use the active sonar anymore. And for that, he was murdered. Okay, that's how far they go. Because they don't care if whales die gruesomely, bleed to death. They care about nothing. They care only about profit maximization. And there's an entire conglomeration of corrupt hand washing going on out there. And it's not about some kind of conspiracy theory or some kind of sinister conspiracy. No, it's greed. That's what it is. The one person depends on that person. It has its hierarchy, The one on the top is just cashing in, and he doesn't want that cash flow to stop, and he either goes into complete repression and denial about what's happening out there with all the damage, or a lot of those people, they know about it, but they don't care. They just don't care. They just care more about the profit maximization and keeping this market perpetuation going. So like whatever it is, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, creating these active sonar devices, or creating devices surgery devices, or whatever it is. So they don't care what it does to the individual. Okay. So we need to become very aware about this. I see a lot of people in much denial. So wherever I go, I talk to people about natural healing. It's almost like the Twilight Zone. I go in there and they act like they haven't even seen me. They act like they haven't even seen my comment. they kind of like walk past it without even looking at it twice. So I find all of this depressing, shocking, and I find this very disturbing, what's going on with this mass denial, really, And then a lot of people, they are, because the corporate agenda works with people's religiousness, they'll go in, the oil industry will go in and say the environmentalists are devils, and the religious people go, oh, that must be true then, right? So, or they'll say, oh, the naturopaths, the holistic healers, those are witches. And they all go, yeah, that must be true, So when they see anyone coming up with something that is not damaging the liver, that is natural, comes from the earth, that is wholesome, okay, then they will skip it, because then they're afraid, oh, if I do this, I might go to hell. Okay, so this is a witch, I can't even be friends with her. That's what the corporate agenda achieved, and that's what they wanted to achieve. That's too bad he has to do this. So that kind of sort of almost makes this presentation not so serious. But what I'm talking about is really, really, really serious. And the reason why I have the computer like this is because it's really dark outside, and I'm just harvesting the last light that comes through these thick clouds. And if I have it in the other direction, then it looks just so depressing with all of my dimples and wrinkles and all of this. So it's like I have to have the light in front of me, so it's more pleasant. So, and it's more uplifting too. So yeah, those are very, very important subjects to talk about on this computer here. Oh, and I can see it. So 32:22. Okay. So I don't want to make it longer than an hour, but sometimes I just make it for half an hour. But I don't even know if people watch this, but I highly recommend to you watch my videos and particularly research these people. Don't just take my word for it. When I talk about certain names, I will mention the names again. These 3 important molecular biologists, I'm going to mention them underneath this video. I'm going to check out Epstein. I will put that in under my video, so that you can research this for yourselves, and not think that I made this up, because I didn't. Okay, there are amazing, fantastic solutions out there that are marginalized at best and slandered at worst. Okay, and some people are murdered for propagating that information. And the whole range, they use religion to slander these people. They use people's religiousness and their fears. They use their fears of social rejection. They use all kinds of trickery to get people on board with the corporate agenda and against those that want to make the world better, like Elon Musk, for example. So I think that's cool that Elon Musk is kind of rubbing it in now. Sometimes, he's so brilliant. He's just so way more intelligent than anyone else. So he sees all of this, what they're doing, that they're trying to ridicule him. So he'll rub it in. He'll do a little dance on stage to show you, hell yes, I'm a nerd. And you know what? It's good. It's cool. You should also be a little bit more nerd and think more out of the box and think more for yourselves and not be a complete slave to the corporate agenda, because that's what people are when they're religious, when they are afraid of social rejection, they are slaves to the corporate agenda. Okay. So, but I want to come back to what happened to the papa dog. On December 10, I woke up because I heard the papa dog walking really fast and briskly, as he always does, towards the door. So I thought, oh, Paul must have been feeding him. It was about around noon. I always get up late. And I get up, I go into the hallway, walk towards the door to let the papa out, and he goes into the other corner of the door, not the corner where the door opens. And I've seen him do this before several times. And I thought, what's going on? Is the papa getting a little bit disoriented? So that's I had already been observing in the weeks before. So a little bit of some kind of age-related dementia onset or something, could be. So it walks into the other corner and kind of like as if he didn't see the end of the wall, kind of walks. I don't know if his nose touched the end of the wall, but he walks into the corner real fast and then falls over. He falls over to the right side. And then he tries to get back up, but his head is twirling and he has no more motor coordination. He has no more balance at all. And we've seen this happen to one of our former dogs, Samantha. When she died, she had a stroke too, and it was the same and was even worse. Her whole body was constantly flipping over. So we immediately rushed her to the veterinarian. And the same vet, and he recognized this was a real serious neurological damage, and it wouldn't have any sense to keep her alive. That would just cause her to suffer. So we had to have her euthanized. So, but she was Great Dane, like a quarter Labrador, and we were hoping that she would live longer, but she lived to be 11, which is also that's very old, for a Great Dane. So a Basset Hound, those are large dogs too. People underestimate because they're about 14 inches only high. They're very, very low to the ground, kind of like a sea lion, but they have a massive body. So they're just short, but with a massive body. Papa wore extra large. So they're very, very chunky, and they can weigh up to 100 pounds without being overweight, maybe even 110. So they can get very large, particularly the males. So the papa, I think the papa was, I don't know, I think he was 100 pounds, but he was also overweight. But he looked like he was 100 pounds. We haven't weighed him. So, and I kept telling Paul, don't overfeed the papa dog, don't give in to it. And he said, but I feel sorry for him. He wants more food. He would always be sitting up, begging like the Easter Bunny. We always thought that was so cute, and I always held him like this. And so, but that day, December 10, he fell over. He had a severe stroke, and he was disoriented. He was also demented then. He didn't know what was going on. He was very confused. But he tried to get back up, and then he managed to kind of walk, but in a very wobbly way, walk back towards the kitchen. I put the harness on him, and we both had to lift the harness to drag the papa dog because he could not walk anymore. It was complete neurological damage. We carried him, dragged him to the van, and immediately rushed him over to the veterinary clinic. And that's when they took x-rays. They didn't allow us in there in the x-ray room, and I cried, and I was a complete mess, and it was like a complete nightmare for me, because all of this came so suddenly, It was such a shock. So then he brought the x-ray and talked to us about it. He said the stomach was way overstretched and full of food because Paul had been feeding him. He said that's very damaging, definitely, but he thought it was a stroke. So, he has a lot of experience, and that's what it looked like to me too. So then we went downstairs into the emergency room, the operating room. The papa was there on a table. They had him there on kind of stretcher, and he had these permanent needles in. Seeing him like this, it was just so, it's beyond words, it's beyond words. I went down there, I was like, my papa dog. I went over, rushed over to him and held him, and he tried real frantically to get up because he wanted to get up and leave with us. He didn't want to stay there. And it was so monstrously painful that this can never be explained in words, how painful this was. This was like, this was a shock to my system. And so the vet came back and said, are we ready? And he had the needle, the syringe with the blue fluid. I assume it was pentobarbital. And I said yes. And not the needle, the needle was already in his vein. He had just the syringe, and he hooked the syringe up to the needle that was in his arm. And very slowly he started to inject this fluid into him. And it was holding him. I had my arms over him. And Papa was very tense, very, very tense, because he was afraid and he didn't know what was going on. And I think he had intuition what was going on, and his body was afraid of dying, of course. So that's why we have to be there with our animals. We have to hold them, We have to have our hands on the body, with the Great Danes, they wouldn't go on the table, they had to be placed on a mat on the floor, and that was good, because then I could be lying down on the floor with the Great Dane and have my arm around them while that was happening. Yeah. With Kenny, that had to be done on the parking lot. That was also in December. That was on December 11, 2016. With Kenny. And Kenny was almost 9, but he was very sickly, an albino Great Dane, a very extra large, and it was clear that he was not going to live very long. So the vet said, for him to be almost 9, that we've done a very, very, very excellent job, and I really appreciate that the vet said that. And the papa was almost 11. And so for a large basset hound, that's also very good. That is very good. That's a very old age. So, and the papa didn't have to suffer. So Paul and I just keep reminding each other, he didn't have to suffer. While Kenny suffered much more. Kenny suffered for years with celiac disease, and the vet also assumed that he probably had stomach cancer because he'd been throwing up, and then he would get back together and be running again. So then it was always back and forth like this, with a lot of suffering in between, and it was just way too hard for us to bring him to the vet and have him euthanized when he was still, walking with us and going for hikes, but throwing up in between. It was very difficult. It was like a limbo situation that makes it very difficult when the animal is sort of like suffering but not really ready to be euthanized. So that's very difficult, was much harder. So with the Papa dog, with the holistic treatment, we got him almost 3 more years. So if we hadn't done the holistic treatments, he would have died within just a couple of months. So if he had been with someone else who didn't know about holistic treatments, or if he had stayed in the foster care facility with all the other dogs there, some of them bit him there, that it was a total disaster. And when they told me that he was just bitten again, I just said to Paul, if I go there in storm and weather to pick him up, I don't care. I cannot let him be bitten one more time, while he was still staying with the foster mothers. And so we got him, and we gave him almost 3 more years of a happy life with holistic health. He has never been to a veterinarian until the day of the stroke, while he was with us. And he actually recovered very well, even with the metastases, because we put the clay on it, and we gave him kelp seaweed every day. That we have been learning over the last 5-6 years, and we didn't know about this for a long time with Kenny. We could have spared Kenny a lot of suffering if we had known about the kelp seaweed before, if we had known about the diatomaceous earth before that, which helped Kenny tremendously with his stomach. So, or kaolin clay, or bentonite clay, or all of these amazing things. And Paul Stamets mushroom cultures, he has made supplements from it. I haven't tried those yet. I just recently discovered this. Okay, so Paul Stamets, his mother had last stage cancer, and she was old. She was like 85. And the mushrooms completely cured this woman. Old and last stage, and she already gave everything gave up on it, already made peace with, being buried. And it was horrible, he said. They all cried, it was terrible. She wrote her will, and he tried so hard to get her to take the mushroom, but she wasn't listening. So until finally a doctor said to her, there's this clinical trial with these mushrooms, why don't you try that? And she signed up for it. She thought, oh, well, I have nothing to lose. And guess what? She completely healed her whole body, at age 85 with last stage cancer. With those mushrooms, okay? I mean, this speaks much louder and much clearer, the results. They speak much louder than any messenger like myself could deliver it to the public. The results speak very loud and clear, okay? But most people still will ignore this. They will ignore it, and they will walk away. I guess they want their chemo experience or whatever, I don't know. I don't know why. I guess it's maybe conditioning. They have been so thoroughly conditioned by the medical industry, by religion, by social stigmata, social rejection fear, and so on and on and on. Their parents, their peer groups, their schools, their teachers. So, most people go like, oh, whatever the majority does, they will do. That must be good. Whatever the majority does must be good. No, that's not good. In many cases, it's not good. Okay. Somebody came there with a white car, I don't know, maybe the postal lady, but whatever. My husband didn't even hear it. He's so hard at hearing. He can't even hear it if I talk even loud to him. So it's all worries me very much. And health problems, he has health problems, and I want him to get on the mushroom. So trying to talk him into getting on the reishi and these other mushrooms. I can't remember these names. Those are very complicated names. But I want to study this. I want to get into it. I want to study every one of those mushrooms. And I think this is exciting. And that lady curing herself 100%. And now they showed a photo of her. She actually looks rosy and she looks very healthy, And she looks younger also. So, and that's Paul Stamets. He is 64 and he looks like he is 45. I mean, this is really interesting. It's really amazing, and he's full of energy and very dynamic. Goes hiking all the time in the forest with his wife, and they're both nature lovers, and they explore these amazing mushrooms that are growing on trees. And I've seen this one mushroom that he was showing, the one that cures cancer. I think that's the one that we had on this one tree here. That was mixed in with tree resin. That mushroom. Those are very hard mushrooms. I think they create an extra bark on the outside of the tree, some kind of almost like a dress of the tree, So to protect the tree and maybe to give the tree extra nutrients and protection and like sort of like a band-aid also, So but I'm very cautious with mushrooms. When I discover a mushroom that looks very interesting out there, whether it's a tree mushroom or one that grows in the forest or in the soil, I'm not going to touch that mushroom, not even with my hands, and I remove them because I also don't want our dog to step on it or maybe accidentally ingest it, because some of these mushrooms are very poisonous. So we have to be very careful about this. So I'm going to rely on the mushroom expert with this and just order his mushroom supplements that he has. So I'm going to get into this for sure. So, but I am very healthy because I take sodium bentonite clay, I take diatomaceous earth and kelp seaweed every day in a warm drink, and I take a handful of herbal supplements, and they keep me very healthy. So, and that's what we did with the papa as well, and it made the papa have a very, very good retirement years. Really happy, lots of hiking, going to hot springs, and one time we bathed in that shallow fish pond at Virgin Valley Hot Springs, and it was awesome. And so it was just absolutely lovely. And there were also some water birds in there, like little ducky type of birds, and Papa was all excited, and that was the most amazing moment with the Papa dog in that warm spring pool with the water lilies and with mud on the ground and this really sulfuric mud, and with the water birds and this little sparkling waterfalls, and it felt so good with the papa together bathing in the warm spring pool. And he liked it too. It was really, really nice. was wonderful. I'll never forget this. That's one of the few highlights of my life. Okay. And we have so many great photos, wonderful photos of the Papa, great videos that even if my computer crashes, that will never be lost, that will always be there as long as the existence of technology, maybe be beyond human existence, these videos will be there, and the robots will be watching them. And so I don't know how far this is gonna go, but they'll be there for a very, very long time, for robots and humans and maybe future beings or ETs to watch and think, oh, that is kind of cute. Two different species in love with each other, bathing in a warm spring pool. That's lovely. So maybe they can remember humanity in this way. That would be good. So, and maybe humanity can learn something from that, from those videos and those images of kindness and love, and of all of us kind people who put kindness into the world in form of videos and photos and poetry and stories and novels. David Foster Wallace, Papa's former incarnation. So he finally, had a good retirement without pain, without suffering, was sitting up like the circus tiger or the Easter bunny, and hiking and splashing and going into lagoons and hot springs, bathing and smelling on flowers and playing with a deer. He played with a deer in the summertime. A deer boy, a baby boy. They played with each other. It was so sweet. And I think the baby may have lost his mother because of the hunters. And baby boy wanted to come and live with us. That was also, I made a video about this when I heard the gunshots down on the street that one night, and I hadn't seen the baby boy after that. So Esther Hicks always says, no death is accidental. That every death is actually a signing out, a voluntary signing out of the soul, who says, okay, up to here, and that's good now. Maybe baby boy wanted to be reunited with his mother. But before that, there are glimpses and moments of joy that happen in our lives, And so there was a glimpse and moment of joy between the Papa and the deer boy, playing back and forth like this, a little cautious, a little bit afraid, but interested, and went back and forth and back and forth. The Papa was very curious, and he didn't bark. He really wanted to smell the deer baby and get to know him. And the deer baby wanted to smell on him and get to know him. It was very, very lovely. Those are lovely moments, Many lovely moments. Kenny had many lovely moments also with cows. And so it's those lovely moments that are full of love and energy and light and infinity, the infinite cosmos, infinite love. It's those moments that we live for, So when the Papa got the euthanasia, the stress and the fear and all of this evaporated, and the body relaxed. And I could feel it, and I said, relaxation. That's what I felt so strongly. This relaxation. And when I saw this pentobarbital, I was almost jealous. I felt like, let's get another one of those syringes with that blue stuff and put that in me. I didn't say it, and then he would have probably called a social worker over. I didn't want that to happen. So, no, I thanked the doctor, I can't say the name. I almost did. So, thank you. And I thanked him for also being, also saying that honestly, that it wouldn't have any sense for him to undergo any further treatments, which would have made him money, but he felt sorry for the papa. So that's why he suggested and said it's better for the papa to get euthanasia. And we both knew it, and my husband was shaking. And I was just endlessly crying and sobbing. And then they helped us to bring the papa into our van, on the van floor. They laid a sheet over him. That was very sweet of them. The ladies petted my arm, which was very, very sweet of them. Thank you infinitely much, because that made me feel so much safer in that situation. And I had my arms on the papa. And then we brought the papa's spacesuit, as I call it. We brought a spacesuit back with us. We laid the spacesuit on the tarp, on the grass. And as I did with Kenny, I lied down in pouring rain, in coldness. I lied down with Papa's spacesuit, with his body. I had my arm around him, and my face buried into his coat, in the neck. The neck rolls. And I laid there for a while. I don't know, 20 minutes or so. I said to Paul, I needed that. I needed that time to say goodbye. And then we brought the body over where Kenny is buried, and we dug a grave. And we put him in the grave, and we left the grave open for one night, just in case, because you just want to make sure that there's cell death and rigor mortis, and that body gets hardened. So, and then the next day, and also when ants go into the eyes, but there weren't any ants. It was too cold for that. So, but the next day I touched his body and to make sure that he had rigor mortis. And I lifted the legs, and everything was completely hardened. There was no more suppleness in the joint. It was completely rigid. So then I knew that the body's cells were dead as well, and that he wouldn't be somehow revived or reviving. And then we covered his body. I put some of the real big earthworms that we dug up, put them next to his body. And then we covered the whole body with the kaolin earth. And I put twigs from the spruce tree that had fallen from the storm put that on top. And then and then the next day I went out and brought ocean rocks, and I put those on the grave as well for him, and another one for Kenny as well. And then I sat there by the graves, and every day after that, it was like a shock. And my life was empty. I felt like I have nothing to live for now. And a week later, I overdosed on Pierre's. I wanted to make my heart stop. But I woke up again the next day, and when I woke up, I wasn't even feeling bad at all. I was because the Pieris japonicus is a medicinal plant, but it can, if you take too much, it can slow the heart rate way down and can cause the heart to stop. So, and it has happened already. Was in animals and deer and cows and people too. It's listed as a toxic plant. So, but I woke up again, and it was, to me, it was like a sign that Papa Dog Dave and Kenny, the Great Dane, my two former dogs that are now buried next to each other, that their souls spoke to me. It felt like they were speaking to me, and they said, you still have things to live for. You can get another dog, and you can help, and you can educate other people about things that are important for them to know. I remained depressed and still, and went back and forth, going closer to being suicidal and coming back out, and then thinking, well, maybe we can go to the hot springs. So maybe Paul needs me to help him. And then I was between being suicidal and having hope. And it's still like this, but I'm working very, very vigorously on it. I'm meditating on it. I cry every day. I howl every day. And this is how I go through it, So and I try to be of service for the world. I research things, I share that with other people so that they don't have to make the same mistakes. And also don't overfeed your dogs. My husband has been overfeeding the Papa dog. It's not a good idea. Don't overfeed your dogs. They have to have a proper amount of food. They cannot have the ribs showing. That has to be all smooth. But they can't be like expanded like that, like the Papa dog was. So that belly, that was a fat belly, was that. And the last night he slept with me, his back against my whole body, and he has a real long back, like as long as my back. And I had my arm around his big fat belly and squishy, and I petted him gently on the belly. And I already had this because I'm really, really intuitive. I already had this sick feeling in my stomach. I felt every day, I felt like what if this is the last day or something, you know. So every moment I had with him, it just was so infinitely precious. There's such a strong connection between us. He's my soul baby and my twin flame. Okay, I'm gonna end this video now. Take care.